has been a long time coming, but Black Ops 7 Call of Duty is the lowest selling COD in years. Cheers to Call of Duty fans for finally having standards. But what does this mean for gaming? What does this mean for the community? What does this mean for COD? Well, essentially, Call of Duty avoiding the most popular piece of hardware on the market, the Nintendo Switch, has led to their brand completely eroding. Kids are not playing Call of Duty in this day and age. They're playing Splatoon. They're playing Fortnite. They're playing anything but this derivative, uninspired slop that every year just is the same thing over and over again for a higher price point. When in actuality, you are better off just playing a good first person shooter and playing it indefinitely. There's no reason to upgrade. There's no reason to buy the new COD. There's never any change or evolution. It doesn't matter the setting or the developer or the what's in the game. Like, Call of Duty is always the same thing over and over and over again. And what we're seeing with Call of Duty Black Ops 7 is that the people who grew up nostalgic for Call of Duty 4, people who thought Modern Warfare was the greatest game ever made, they're in their 40s now. Okay, these guys are boomers. These guys aren't playing games anymore. They're just living their lives, and they're no longer nostalgic for this dumb property. So this game's core demographic, little children, has just grown out of it. And now they're just enjoying their lives, not playing COD, while the franchise itself languishes in obscurity because nobody actually likes these games. The only reason COD was ever popular was because, like Halo, it was a generic game that appealed to normies for superficial reasons. Like, oh, what do you mean I'm a soldier going on these crazy missions? Whoa. Like, it has no creativity. There is no originality. There's nothing fresh, original, or exciting about it. But because it's so generic, because it appeals to the lowest common denominator, it is somehow this incredibly popular thing among just individuals with low IQ. It is something that took off for basic reasons. It is the Twilight of video games for men. Okay. It is that low tier. It is something that people don't respect. It's something that everybody hates. Like, if you play a COD, you are very, very shocked at just the low quality of it all. It's remarkable how this franchise continued for as long as it did, but much like Twilight, everything has to come to an end someday. This is the end result of Call of Duty, is that eventually the audience has moved on. Eventually the audience is moving over more to like these free to play online shooters and this stuff where they don't have to shell out $70 a year for these rehash games. The business model has changed, and COD is in a position where absolutely nobody wants to see it succeed. Okay, not even the people who buy these games want to see them continue to get made. Everyone who buys and plays them is just completely shocked by how awful, boring, and poorly developed they are. It is appalling how everybody bends over backwards to try and damage control the situation, to try and make COD seem like this big universal thing. It wasn't that long ago when I said Call of Duty was like one of the three unholy pillars propping up the PlayStation and Xbox brands. Like that, the annual sports games, and like Grand Theft Auto, right? The unholy trinity of just bad generic video games that everybody thinks are great because they have no perspective and that they don't play enough games. Like, that's the reality of PlayStation and Xbox right now, is that it's completely reliant on those three brands. But, the annual sports games have made this jump over to Nintendo Switch. Grand Theft Auto takes almost a decade and a half to see release. And now we're seeing Call of Duty start to fall off in relevancy, because Call of Duty was always something that was only popular because of just circumstance. It was never something unique or creative. It was just the first to hop on a trend, and it had a lot of momentum for that reason. People didn't buy COD because they were so taken in by how innovative and fun it was. They played it because they wanted to like do something with their friends for a weekend, playing zombies or like, playing online multiplayer. Like Call of Duty was only popular for those reasons. It was shallow, it was basic, it was the lamest thing imaginable. Like, and we're at the position now where even the most hardcore COD players in existence are kind of moving over to other video game IPs. They're going over to Battlefield, they're going over to like the alternatives, like a lot of which are better than Call of Duty, and we are going to continue to see a slow, gradual decline for Call of Duty. Like this is a franchise that's in decay, and it has been for a long time. Not only can they not innovate, they have never innovated. There is nothing to COD that really makes it stick out from the competition. It is the generic brand in first-person shooters. Like, that's all it is. That's the only reason people buy it, is because they just want to play a first-person shooter for like a week in November and then just kind of move on with their lives, Like, that is the average Call of Duty audience. Like, that is the Call of Duty experience. That is why we as gamers absolutely are obligated to make fun of this brand whenever it may appear. So this is a very glorious moment in video game history where we're finally starting to see signs that a titan of the video game industry is in free fall. Nobody wants to see COD succeed. I cannot wait to see how other people just can continue to rise up against COD and continue pointing out things that were very, very obvious to me, even back when Call of Duty 4 came out. How this game is very generic, how it's uninspired, how it's not fun to play, how these games are just like the most boring things imaginable. Like, it was embarrassing how the general audience really believed that Call of Duty was some innovative first-person shooter franchise when you had far superior alternatives on Nintendo Wii. How the aiming system on that console made shooting like infinitely more fun. And yet, most people don't even accept that. Most people won't even admit the Wii did better than the PS3. Like nothing that Call of Duty did mattered long term. The biggest video game IP on the planet completely fell flat in the face of Nintendo. And that is an inevitable fate that will also befall Grand Theft Auto. It is only a matter of time.